Good evening, it's 7 o'clock, and so we're going to begin the March 23rd, 2021 meeting of the McMinnville City Council. I'd like to call the council meeting to order and request that Claudia do a roll call.
Councilor Garvin. Councilor Geary.
Here.
Councilor Minke.
Here.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Present.
Councilor Peralta. Mayor Hill is absent this evening, and Council President Drapkin.
Present, here. Thank you, and we will now do the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilor Menke, if you will please lead us in the pledge.
All rise.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Menke. As we begin tonight, I want to note the email that you may have seen today that has been added to your packet. You may have thoughts or questions regarding this. However, this evening, I will not be entertaining questions or comments from councilors regarding it. We will have an opportunity to discuss it in a near future level 10 meeting. And I'd like to read a proclamation that we have prepared for this evening. City Manager Towery, do we have any guests present that we should note for this proclamation?
I am not sure. I will note for the record that Councilor Peralta is on the meeting now.
Thank you.
Council President Drapkin, there is no guest for tonight's proclamation.
Okay, thank you. So we will have this proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas child abuse is one of our nation's most serious public health problems, with scientific studies documenting the link between the abuse of children and a wide range of medical, emotional, psychological, and behavioral disorders. And whereas it is estimated that 1 in 4 children will suffer significant abuse before the age of 18, and annually over 80,000 Oregonian children, 89,451 in 2019, are reported to the Department of Human Services as having been abused or neglected, with 13,674 child abuse victims confirmed in 2019 alone, although many cases go unreported. And whereas the physical, emotional, mental, and financial impact of abuse falls on children of all ages and abilities, who come from all economic, racial, and social backgrounds, and these crimes affect many more family members, friends, neighbors, and community. And whereas effective child abuse prevention efforts succeed because of partnerships created among state and local government agencies, schools, faith communities, civic and community organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community, while recognizing that feeling connected to community can be a protective factor against child abuse, and whereas is dedicated to stopping child abuse and supporting survivors and their non-offending families while working to prevent, and whereas each of us has a role to play in stopping the problem of child abuse as part of solution by learning how to prevent, recognize, and report child abuse and support prevention, education, and empowerment programs for children and youth. And now the mayor of the city of McMinnville will be signing this proclamation. At this point, we'll be moving into citizens or comments from citizens. Any interested audience members are invited to provide comments, and any comment provided that requires a follow-up will be assigned to a staff member. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. Comments will be limited, if necessary, to 3 minutes per person for a total of 30 minutes. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand feature in your Zoom to request to speak. Once your turn is up, we will announce your name and unmute your mic, so you may send a chat directly to City Recorder Claudia Cisneros, and we will announce you. Claudia, do we have anyone on the Zoom or, well, we already said there's no one there, but do we have anybody on the Zoom that would like to comment?
Not at this moment. I do want to state for the record that Councilor Garvin has joined the meeting.
Thank you. One last chance here. Is there anybody that would like to make any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go into our advice and information items. So starting with reports from councilors on committees and board assignments, starting with Councilor Gary.
Sorry, the cadet heater in my old office went crazy, and now it's like 372 degrees in here. So I think there's an egg frying. I'm in between a bunch of meetings. Some of my climate-friendly rules advisory committee and a couple other longer ones are in between, and landscape and MacPac are in between as well. So next MacPac meeting, as usual, is the first of the month, which is the first Thursday of April. April will kick off a special month, which we'll meet twice. So I guess the third Thursday again will be a special MacPac meeting. We're trying to get through a bulk of information on a quick timeline. So there'll be an upcoming meeting, double dipping, and then we spoke to Visit McMinnville for MacPac and are kind of finished our current slate of group talks, and we're looking at a new list of organizations to get out. So if you have an organization we haven't talked to you and you'd love to hear from us, let us know. That's my update. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Chenoweth?
I apologize. I'm trying to pick blue cheese out of a salad. I forgot to say no blue cheese on. And so I'm now left-handed trying to use a mouse. So we had two meetings this last week. Economic Vitality Leadership Council met on March 10th at 3 p.m. We appointed the new leadership for the upcoming year. That was Carson Benner was elected to chair, and Chris Chenoweth was voluntold to co-chair. We discussed our goals for the upcoming year. The demographic data shows we're losing the young professional demographic, which I believe was age 21 to 35. So we want to identify and then market amenities that professional skilled workers in that demographic need as an attractor for workforce and business development. It's going to take some data gathering and then be able to market directly to them. We want to work on the 3rd Street Improvement Project on kind of help sell that. And also kind of in the long-term planning, working toward the Innovation Center planning and development. That was it for the Economic Vitality Leadership Council. Then the next day, on March 11th at 3 p.m., the Historic Landmarks Committee meeting was held. We discussed the demolition of Mac Hall. That was passed with 3 amendments that pertain to basically trying to maintain some of the history in a monument using building materials, et cetera. The chair at the end of the meeting, the chair resigned effective 3/12/2021. Election will be held at the next meeting to replace him. It was John Mead. And then just before that happened, we had an amazing presentation that was put on by Amanda covering public meeting laws, public records, and what is and what is not a conflict of interest. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Menke?
I have a report from the YCAP meeting, which should have been today, but just the Finance Committee met. But I have the full packet, so I thought I'd bring up some of the more interesting parts, starting with finance. Our grant revenue as of year to date is $4,518,000. It exceeds the prior year by nearly about 2.2 million. And we expected about another, well, at least according to the budget as of the beginning of the year, we expect another 1.3 million. However, I'll have some revisions on that. Donations to date are 1.2 million, which is substantially over the prior year, and we're over whatever they predicted for budget for this last year. Personnel costs are continuing to rise. We've hired a couple of new people, and client assistance is 3.5 million so far this year. Moving on to other important things. From the state, YCAP as of today received a $5 million grant for rental assistance. $580,000 of that will be for administrative costs. They were currently at $700,000 and thought they could only go through April, so this is a very welcome piece of information. In addition, critical conversations have continued about House Bill 2100. CAPO and the Community Action Agency community have effectively highlighted the grave concerns for local impact of any percent of disinvestment in homeless services funding to the community action agencies, the rural ones. A work group has been convened to find compromise on the statutory changes that impact the CAAs and homeless services. YCAP is participating to ensure local and a rural voice is heard. In addition, YCAP is proactively engaged in early discussions in regards to House Bill 206 and 204, which includes potential funding for the City of McMinnville's Navigation Center. YCAP's potential role is undetermined, but the agency will be purposeful in any opportunity for leadership and or community partnership. The agency has continued in discussions from Project Turnkey and is still in phase 2 with Providence and Oregon Community Foundation. Let's see, the new hires were for a shelter assistance and a coordinary entry rapid resolution specialist, and we still have some open positions. Finance, we are finally 98% caught up on a backlog of grant billings and other processes that fell behind during a hectic calendar year while being understaffed. So that's good news. They were like at 75%, I think, last month, and they've all the way up to almost 100% now. And they were able to fix some long-term software issues, so that was good. The new accountant is just chewing up the ground on all this stuff. I think that may be it. Let's see if I've got, I did have one other thing. Just briefly, energy services, they actually are fully funded for that, for energy services this year. The department staff is busy processing these energy assistance applications. As of March 14th, the department staff had entered into statewide database Opus, a system, 672 applications and approved 583 households for payment processing for $208,000 worth of funding. And that's the report I've got for YCAP.
Thank you, Councilor. Do you want to also report on the meeting we attended last week with the City of Newburgh?
We had the opportunity to attend with Newburgh. We were kind of the newbies on the block, and we came and talked about what we've been doing for the homeless community and for affordable housing. And it was a great opportunity to compare where Newburgh was with us and see, we're further along on House Bill 201, but they're further along. They actually got a corporate excise tax passed, or not corporate excise tax, but construction excise tax passed for 1%. And I think that goes for 5 years. And I apologize, my phone is ringing. And then I'm trying to think. We basically discussed all of our incentive things that we had been doing. The only thing I don't think we went into much detail on was the overnight camping process, but we've done quite a bit on that. And Newburgh gave their information, and it appears that we're going to invite Doug, who is their planning director, to a meeting soon to happen. It'll either be this month or probably next. So It was a great meeting. If you want to add anything, Remy, feel free. That's all it's coming to my brain right at the moment. But it really was a helpful meeting to understand where we were at. And we had a number of people that could be very instrumental in possibly getting us funds. So that was what was important about it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Peralta?
Thank you, Chair Drabkin. So for Council of Governments, we held our annual meeting. It was pretty well attended for a Zoom meeting, and I thought that the format was went pretty well. Thank you, Chris, for attending. Scott Dadson has taken over officially as the Executive Director of the COG. We're very grateful to have him on board. The annual report was given at the meeting, as it always is. I'm just going to hit a few highlights that I thought really stuck out for me. Council of Governments took in $307,000 in member dues and other associated fees in 2020. And they leveraged that into a $3.3 million operating budget that was used to bring in $45 million in state and federal economic funds, both COVID-19 recovery and transportation and other similar funds as well for homelessness services. Council of Governments is leading the effort to support the Santiam Canyon and recovery from the fires. The COG provided office space and recovery support for the city of Detroit and is now playing the leading role in working through the state policies related to the recovery of the infrastructure and local governments there. So very grateful for the work of the COG staff in helping those communities that were affected. In 2020, the COG also provided the legal structure for the formation of the new Marion and Polk homelessness initiative and for that new continuum of care. So that was really a lot of positive movement in a city that has, in a region that has been really hit hard by homelessness. And then the final thing in the meeting was that I did take over as chair of the COG this year. So anyway, looking forward to doing a lot of good works, and thank you for the time, Councilor Drabkin.
Thank you, Councilor Peralta, and congratulations on your new role as chair of the COG.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Councilor Garvin?
Thank you, Council President Drabkin. Congratulations, Sal, on that, and thank you, everybody, for your department head reports. Lots of good information tonight. Mine's rather brief. We haven't had a YCOM meeting since our last council meeting, and as far as the airport goes, most of that is in your packet. So we haven't had an airport commission meeting either, but there's quite a bit of airport resolution in our packets tonight about updating hangar leases to reflect, I guess, for lack of a better term, a precedent we set with the pot cake hangar, and making sure there's equity out there with all the other leases that have hangars, and make sure they want to keep up to date on them so we're not inheriting dilapidated hangars at the end of their initial 30-year lease term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Garvin. On my reports for this week, I think if Kylie's on the line, I'll leave the update on the DEI advisory committee to when we get to department head reports, and then the McMinnville Affordable Housing Task Force meeting has been postponed by 1 week, so that we will not be meeting tomorrow, but we'll be meeting 1 week from tomorrow. And now go to department head reports, and let's see. Well, Kylie, why don't we start with you?
Thank you. I wasn't fully prepared to start talking, so hang on just 1 second while I pull some stuff up. So our DEI committee, we met, and I think we've reported that we met at our last city council meeting. And so what we're working on now is establishing kind of their goals and what their work plan is going to be. And so at our next DEI committee meeting, the committee members are going to bring some homework that they've been working on, so we can sort of refine some goals and identify areas that we can have an impact. And they're going to be electing their chair and vice chair at that committee meeting. We did not get to that yet. They also had an excellent training from our city attorney. So thank you to Amanda for explaining all the really fun ins and outs of public meetings laws. But it's a great group. They're excited to get going, and they'll hopefully kind of start formulating a more put together plan at our next meeting in April.
Thank you, Director Bayer. Director Berg.
He's not here tonight.
Okay. Director Quayler.
Good evening, everyone. My report tonight is similar to last week. I just got our final version of our financial statements, and so am able now to do the finishing touches on those documents. So hopefully it will be issued by the end of the week. So that's a big domino that needs to fall in kind of our financial cycles. And we have collectively, as staff, been working really hard on completing the budget process and coming up with, we're really close to getting to a balanced budget. So that's good news. A little more work to be done, but moving forward on that. And I also wanted to mention that I was contacted on Monday and have been asked to present to an LOC and State of Oregon sponsored training for municipalities and housing assistance organizations that are looking to take advantage of public assistance grants funding through FEMA to support their non-congregate shelter initiatives, to give a local perspective on what we've done and what others might consider doing with that important financial resource. So hopefully someone with YCAP will be able to join me to talk about the important things, the successes and the impact of the program. And I'll be, there to be able to talk about all the fun compliance pieces that go into working on FEMA grants. But anyways, I'm really excited to be invited. Not quite sure how all that happened, but hope to represent McMinnville well at that little training on Friday. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Director Bisset. Hi.
Thank you, Council President. Nothing at this time. As Councilor Garvin mentioned, I will have a few airport-related resolutions for you later in the agenda.
Thank you very much. Director Richards.
Good evening, Council President and Councilors. I thought I would report on the Planning Commission because I just realized we don't have a City Council liaison for that, so you don't typically hear what they're doing. They will be meeting next week to go over the first look at our House Bill 2001 rework of our residential design standards. We have a package that we've been working on for a year now to be able to respond to that legislation, but we need to, the state just passed rules in December, and so now we need to see how we're compliant with those rules or where we're not compliant and start making some decisions. We will have 2 public open houses regarding that work in April. We have a consultant who's helping us with that, and so we'll get more information out on that as we get closer to those. And we'll go into a public hearing process with the Planning Commission on that work, probably starting in July, hoping to get it to City Council by September-ish if we can. And then on April, at their meeting in April, which is the 3rd Thursday, I don't have off the top of my head the date, but they will have their first public hearing on proposed code amendments for child care facilities. The intention behind that is to remove some regulatory barriers for child care facilities, especially in our industrial and commercial zones where we can accommodate the traffic impacts and things of that nature without negatively impacting our residential neighborhoods. So we'll be moving forward with those code amendments, and I hope that that will be a fairly seamless process and get to you as City Council fairly quickly in May, if possible.
Thank you. I'm going to go back, and I do think Library Director Jenny Berg is on the call, and I'd like to see if she has an update for us.
Thanks for asking, and I do not have any update. I am just here to listen and stay informed.
Thank you. And Chief Lightford.
Thank you, Council President. We had a kickoff consolidation implementation meeting for the districting process. Spent Friday night and Saturday together with 8 partners working through some of the process. We've still got some good work to do, but the process for consolidation continues to move forward through the steps that we've allocated and directed.
Thank you, Chief. And City Attorney Amanda Guile-Hinman, do you have an update for us?
Thank you. No update tonight.
Thank you. And City Manager Towery?
Thank you, Council President Drabkin. Let me just tack a little bit more onto a couple of the reports you heard tonight. Councilor Garvin was able to join that fire district consolidation event for most of the time via Zoom. There were some other partners as well. And one of the things that Councilor Garvin will be planning to do is to do some outreach one-on-one to some of the other elected officials just as a touch base moment. So we'll be working with Councilor Garvin to support him in that effort. Also say that thanks to Jennifer and the finance team and all the executive team members, as well as the key budget support staff folks in the organization. Jennifer was understating things. It's been a lot of work. This has been a challenging and sort of tumultuous budget process for us. I do think we're close to being able to put a balanced budget into the system in the next handful of days. I don't have a specific status report for you tonight as to what we expect to see in that proposed budget, because there's still some fine details to work out. I do expect to provide a more detailed report to you, the organization, and to the community relatively soon. So thanks for that. And then just finally, I'm planning to take Friday off. Somebody in my house turns an old age this Friday. It's not my wife. And also have the West Coast ICMA Regional Conference. That's a virtual event Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon. So it'll cut into some birthday celebration perhaps. Thanks for the time tonight. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. And Councilor Geary, is that your hand up? Please, this would be a great time.
I just realized it may look like you could high five yourself if you high five the little hand emoji. Wanted to follow up to 2 of Jeff's items, if I may. Oh, now this thing is just waving at me. There we go. First is request denied for time off Friday, you old geezer. Second is on the subject of budget. I feel like every day something else comes out about the federal government's programs. Do you guys have a good handle? Is it a good handle on what money for local governments for COVID relief is available? When and how will that interact with the budget rollout? I feel like I hear a lot of other news and would love to understand how it actually impacts us and how you guys understand how it impacts us.
And that's a great question. Thanks for that, Councilor Geary. I will tell you that we know marginally more than we knew last time I talked with you, which is to say we still don't have the details associated with the program. Both the League of Oregon Cities and a variety of professional associations like mine, ICMA, are working on that. In fact, a number of us are attending an ICMA webinar tomorrow. I know the mayor and perhaps other members of the council and key staff have been attending the League of Oregon Cities weekly calls. What we know is that the amount of money that we communicated with you, roughly $7 million, is earmarked for the city of McMinnville to receive in 2 I'd say payments. The term of art nowadays is tranche. We would expect the
That's a vile word.
Yeah, I don't get it. I haven't Googled to find out what the Greek origin of it is, but payments, how's that? We expect to receive the first half of that money sometime in the next probably 60 days, maybe plus or minus a handful of days. We know that there will be reporting requirements associated with that money. We know that it will be more than enough to trigger a single audit. From a federal funds perspective, we're kind of used to that. We've been through those a number of times recently. And we still don't know what other sort of either strings for use or reporting are attached, other than that there will be. We believe, in talking with both the governor's office and other sources that have been paying close attention to this legislation, that there will be likely fewer requirements related to these funds than were related to the CARES Act money that we got, which was really direct reimbursement for specific and detailed expenses. We do know that lost revenue is a component of the American Rescue Plan Act. And as soon as we know more about that, we will share that information. The second round of funding will happen almost a year exactly after the first round of funding. So it will either late next fiscal year or maybe early in the following fiscal year, depending on when we get our first round of funding, and will presumably carry the same conditions as the first round. So the fact that there's money there is definitely good news. We don't know exactly how or where or in what amounts that good news will accrue to us. So we are not budgeting anything by way of revenue that's coming to us from the Affordable Rescue Plan Act. We may know enough by the time we get to the budget hearing to present proposed amendments to the budget. But right now, we're presuming we will get some of that money this year and some next year, and we'll probably have to deal with it in the context of maybe a supplemental budget or some other action to identify the direction which we would apply those funds. So that's sort of a squishy and long way of saying we know a little bit more than we knew 2 weeks ago, but still don't know enough details to report to you specific recommendation or direction.
Copy that. Thank you.
Councilor Drabkin, can I ask a question also?
Yes, please, Councilor.
Thank you. Jeff, one other question. Do you have a timetable roughly for when we'll have better clarity on the new model that the state's putting together for drug rehabilitation? And because I know that affected our budget in terms of taking money out of the marijuana allocation that we got. And I was wondering if you've had any updates about that program.
I haven't seen any specific updates about that program other than the gross reduction that we would see in those revenues. I don't recall seeing that specifically addressed in the latest League of Oregon Cities revenue estimate, but we'll do a little more background work on that and report back to the council.
Thanks, Jeff. Just a timetable for when they might have more information would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll find out what we can and share that. Thank you, Councilor Peralta.
Thank you. And I think, and please, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you like to correct elected officials in public meetings. But I do believe also that the 60 days from the time that those resources were allocated from the federal government, the federal government's also given themselves an additional 30-day leeway period for dispersing those funds to cities under 50,000 population. So there's a small potential it could be a 90-day window from the time of enactment.
That's exactly right. That's sort of the squish, and so that's why we don't quite know if we'll get it late this fiscal year or early next fiscal year, because I think the date of signing was on or about the 14th of the month, and so sometime between mid-May and mid-June, or maybe between mid-June and mid-July. So yes, you're right.
Okay, great.
We did hear on a call last week that the funds, I guess that's another detail that perhaps is important. Those funds will come to us through the state of Oregon. So the feds are sending the money to the state's then dispersing it to the jurisdictions.
Thank you. Is Captain Simons on the call? I don't see that, but I'm intending on going to Captain Simons next.
Nothing from the police department.
Nothing from the police department. Okay, thank you. Did I miss anyone? I just want to make sure. I don't think so. Thank you. Okay, and then Captain Simons, we have a memo in our packet regarding OLCC license applications adjustments due to COVID-19. It's in your packet, councilors, and will you touch on that, please, Captain?
Yes, thank you, Council President Minke, or Drapkin, excuse me. So the information that you were provided there in the packet is based off of OLCC's guidelines for the COVID-19 relief for licensed establishments. And basically all that they needed to do was submit a request to the licensing agency to have a affordance for a change to their licensing during the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is the update for February for those two licensees that submitted their application.
Thank you. And have all councilors had an opportunity to review the December 2020 cash and investment report that was in your packet? I'm generally seeing nods. Thank you, Captain Simons. Okay, so we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Have Councilor Gary.
I would like to recuse if I know we're short on people. One item on the consent agenda, or if I recuse myself, are we short? Because nope. I would like to recuse myself from the consent agenda voting one of the items on there. I'm involved in a professional manner working on the facility, so I just would like to recuse myself out of an abundance of caution.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything from any other councilors before we begin on the consent agenda? Do any councilors have any reason to request an item be removed from the consent agenda and heard at its regular place on the agenda? Having reviewed it, I would like to hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Manke.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Peralta. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, and the vote passes unanimously. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I say that, would anybody like to vote in opposition? All those opposed say nay. Okay, hearing none. Now the item passes unanimously. Okay, next we'll be moving into resolutions. First we'll be considering resolution number 2021-14, a resolution approving a new lease agreement with the Oregon State Police for 8,004 square feet of office space and 1,676 square feet of separate storage space in city-owned building at 3975 Sears Avenue. And may I call on Community Development Director Mike Bisset to present.
Thank you, Council President and members of the council. I'd refer you to the staff report that's in your packet, as well as copies of the proposed resolution, the proposed lease agreement, and former lease agreements with the Oregon State Police. The Oregon State Police has leased office space from the city at the airport since March of 2009. Their lease was amended in 2013 to add storage space that was constructed on the lot for their use. The amended lease was through April of 2019 and has been extended on a month-to-month basis since that time. City staff, including the city attorney's office and community development department, have been working on a new lease agreement with the Department of Administrative Services and the Oregon State Police since that time. It's been quite a journey. But we have before you this evening a lease document that proposes a 5-year lease with 2 5-year extensions, which will allow for a long-term presence of the Oregon State Police at the airport. The initial terms for the lease amount will be at about $1.25 per rentable square foot, which in this case works out to be $155,000 per fiscal year. Their current lease amount is at about $105,000 per fiscal year. So it does represent, $127,000 per fiscal year. So it does represent a lease increase for the space. The Airport Commission considered the lease agreement at their last meeting and unanimously recommended that the City Council approve the proposed lease. So unless there are any questions, staff would pass that recommendation on to the City Council for consideration.
Thank you. Is there any council discussion? Councilor Peralta?
Oh, no, I just wanted to say congratulations, Mike, on a lot, negotiating the new lease and getting a much significant bump in terms of the amount that they're paying out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-14.
I move 22nd.
The motion was made by Councilor Adam Garvin and seconded by Councilor Peralta. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, please signify by saying nay. The resolution passes unanimously. Next, we'll be considering resolution number 2021-15, a resolution approving a lease amendment with the Air Flight Storage Systems Condominium Owners Association, also known as, no, I thought I'd throw that in, but jokes never work on Zoom. For hangars D and E at the airport, and Community Development Director Mike Bisset, if you will please present again.
Thank you again, Council President and members of the council. I again would refer you to the staff report that's in your packet, as well as the proposed resolution and lease amendment and the current lease with Air Flight Condos. As Councilor Garvin alluded to in his councilor report, this is the first of 3 resolutions you have before you this evening that works to address equity amongst the leaseholders at the airport. Specifically in 2017, when the city issued a lease agreement with Potcake Aviation for their new hangar, it included lease renewal terms that were different than all other leases that existed at the airport. Specifically, prior to their lease, at the end of a lease term, leased buildings were to be turned over to the city regardless of their condition, and became part of city's inventory. We were finding that particular reversion clause was causing difficulty in generating interest in constructing new hangars at the airport, and we modeled our lease language in 2017 after lease language that the FAA had approved in Roseburg at the Roseburg Municipal Airport. And specifically, as the lease term ends for the hangar, the lessee is able to have an inspection done on the building, and if there's at least 5 years of remaining life in the building, the city can enter into a 5-year extension on that building. Those 5-year extensions can continue until the time that there's no longer life left in the building. And at that time, the lease will end, and the leaseholder is required to remove the facility from the airport, and the leased ground is returned to the airport for subsequent releasing. At the time that the Airport Commission and the City Council approved Potcake's lease in 2017, there were questions from several existing leaseholders at the airport regarding the difference between the reversion clause and the new terms. At that time, both the Airport Commission and City Council indicated to the tenants at the airport that we would modify their leases to match the new lease terms at their request. And so it's been some time. These are this evening, you're seeing the first 3 of the existing tenants come forward and ask that their leases be modified. It's not something that the city initiated. We have indicated to the tenants if they would like their lease modified that we would make that happen. And so this first resolution is for hangars D and E, and it simply modifies their lease, which was set to expire in 2032, to have the 5-year extension terms built into it. I had the help of the city attorney's office and certainly the review of the airport commission, who at their last meeting unanimously recommended that the city council approve this lease amendment. So unless there are any questions, staff would present that recommendation to you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there any council discussion or questions?
No, but I'd like to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilor Gary.
I was just going to say, I'm going to miss these staff reports, Mike.
Councilor
much? I talk too much?
Yeah, this is so verbose, man. Come on, we got to move it along.
Councilor Menke.
I just wanted to congratulate Mike on getting all of these done. And yes, it's really nice to see that some positive things are happening with the leases. Will they all have the same starting and ending date? I guess I didn't pay attention to that.
Well, this particular one for D&E is set to expire in 2032. So as they come to that date, they'll be able to do the inspection of the facility and request a 5-year extension, assuming there's life in that hangar. And when we get to the next two resolutions, I'll be very brief and I'll give you those deadlines just since you asked.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I would like to ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-15.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Gary, for making the motion. And thank you, Councilor Chenoweth, was that? For a second? Yes, and thank you, Councilor Chenoweth, for making the second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And all those opposed, please signify by saying nay. And the resolution passes unanimously. Next, we'd like to consider Resolution 2021-16, a resolution approving a lease amendment with the Tyner Investments Company for Hangar L at the airport. And Community Development Director Bisset, please.
Once again, thank you, Council President and members of the council. Same verbiage for staff report, resolution, and lease amendments. This particular lease was set to expire in January of 2040. And so with the addition of the 5-year lease renewal terms, they'll have the option to perform the inspection and have a 5-year lease renewal, assuming there's life left in the building. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend that the City Council follow the Airport Commission's unanimous recommendation to approve this lease amendment.
Thank you, Director. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-16.
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilor Gary and a second by Councilor Garvin.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And
must be putting a priority on good looks for that one there.
The way it came. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And all those opposed, please signify by saying nay. And the resolution passes unanimously. Now we'll consider Resolution 2021-17, a resolution approving a lease amendment with Doug Tyner for Hangar M at the airport. Community Development Director Mike Bisset.
Thank you, Remy, and members of the council. Once again, this is an extension of Hangar M, also set to expire in 2040 and would include the same renewal terms as the previous resolutions. And so the Airport Commission also unanimously recommended approval of this lease amendment. And in my last formal action as a full-time city employee before you, I would recommend that you follow the Airport Commission's recommendation.
Thank you, Director Bisset. And before I open up to council discussion, I just want to say that it has been always a pleasure to work with you. Your knowledge and experience has carried this city and this council very, very far. And thank you for your many years of service.
Well, I certainly appreciate the kind words, and the respect for each of you is mutual. I've shared with a few of you privately that it's been my pleasure to serve McMinnville for a majority of my career, and don't ever underestimate the value that you as policymakers have in the way you do your business here in McMinnville. It makes it so very easy to be a paid professional and to conduct our business when we have engaged and informed policymakers that are at the table to do the right things for the community. So not all of my peers in the state would have that same kind affection for their councils, but I certainly do, and I appreciate everything that each of you do every day, and appreciate the opportunity to serve you over this past 21 years.
Thank you so much. Is there any council discussion or questions? Councilor Chenoweth? I
would just echo what's been said. I obviously didn't get much time to work with you, Mr. Bisset, but enjoy your vacation. You've earned it.
Career change,
vacation. Just enjoy it. You've earned it.
Thank you. Councilor Gary?
Mike, it's been a pleasure to work with you, alongside you out in the field and other aspects, as well on planning adventures and now in council. And I'm gonna phrase it a little oddly. And Jeff, earmuffs, I'm gonna tell you something I've never told another person in my whole entire life, Mike. Go Beavs.
It was worth the journey just to get that, Zach.
It's been a pleasure, Mike.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Peralta?
Yeah, Mike, I really appreciate your precision and the diligence with which you have worked for the city. It's been something that, I've admired throughout the entire time that I've known you, and I will wish you best in your future endeavors. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Sal.
Councilor Garvin?
Mike, it's been a pleasure to work with you, especially on the airport commission. Your wealth of knowledge in that field, even though you're not a full-time airport manager, is just one of your delegated duties as a department head. Has really been appreciated before my time on the council, and as my time on the council, and then on the airport commission as a liaison. All your staff reports have always contained a wealth of information. You've been able to answer questions on the spot, probably better than any department head. As I've been on the council, you are always very well prepared, and it's been much appreciated. And whoever comes behind you has some big shoes to fill. But enjoy that blight removal and trimming up that orchard for the wife.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Also, if anyone else doesn't know, there's a little secret gem. If we're ever allowed to go back into restaurants, 3rd Street Pizza on the hallway back to the bathroom, there's a photo of an old softball co-ed team that has a really handsome young man that looks a lot like Mike Bisset on the wall. It was a treat to discover that one day.
Jack, you've undone all your kind comments from earlier.
Wonderful. Any additional comments or discussion from council? Okay, and I would like to ask for a motion to...
Council President Drabkin, can I take a parting shot here? Mike has made it clear that he doesn't want a big to-do and a big farewell, but he doesn't have a mute button for any of us. So I appreciate the comments that you made. I will say to Councilor Geary, to correct the record, I have told Mike many times, I cheer for the Beavers unless and until they are facing the Ducks. I really, I think the state is better off when both teams are great, like they are right now in basketball. I have appreciated working with Mike these last 4 years. we have sometimes imposed upon Mike to serve as the historian for our executive team, particularly as some of his other more tenured colleagues left over the last few years. I've been careful not to refer to him as the old guy because he's actually not as old as I am. So I do want to respect that. I'm looking forward to seeing Mike in a more casual way periodically on 3rd Street. I know he's going to enjoy his time in the orchards and his time with his family. And this community and this organization is better off for the service that Mike has provided to us over these many years. Thank you, Mike, and congratulations.
Absolutely. May I ask for a motion to approve resolution 2021-17?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilor Menke and seconded by Councilor Garvin. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
And all those, thank you. And all those opposed by saying nay. And the resolution has passed unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll be considering Resolution 2021-18, a resolution authorizing the approval of Master Grant Agreement number 34756 between the City of McMinnville and the Oregon Department of Transportation, also known as ODOT, for the Fund Exchange Program, also known as FEX. Could I call on Engineering Services Manager Larry Sherwood to present?
Thank you, Council President Drabkin and members of the council. I also wanted to throw my appreciation out there for Mike and the guidance and service that he's given to the city over the years. He's led many departments in a great trajectory and left us all in a good place. So I want to congratulate Mike in that. So. As far as the resolution, I'll refer you to the staff report in your packet. The city has historically been required to enter into separate fund exchange agreements with ODOT for each project that uses the city's allotment of federal surface transportation block grant dollars. This master grant agreement for fund exchanges simplifies the process and allows the city to draw down on its allotted funds for the term of the agreement, which is from the date of execution to September 30th, 2024. And unless there are any questions, staff recommends that City Council adopt the resolution and authorize the city manager to execute the master grant agreement.
Thank you very much. Is there any council discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve resolution 2021-18.
So moved.
Second.
The motion from Councilor Geary and a second from Councilor Peralta. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. The resolution is passed unanimously. And don't call this a record, but it is under an hour, and I would now like to adjourn the City Council meeting of March 23rd, 2021. Reminder to councilors, we will be going into executive session. And Claudia, do we stay on this line or is there a separate Zoom line?